For me, Lord.
Progress.
We have people attending.
We do not.
All right, nobody attending up there. All right, let's, I call meeting to order and the roll call attendance.
Lee,
Present.
Catherine,
Present.
Margaret, present, Scott,
Present.
Christina, Diane, Bonnie.
Present. So we definitely have a, quorum. And, the order of things is to go straight to the public hearing.
Motion to appoint Barry and Igor to.
Second.
Yes,
You're in.
You're in.
you're in.
Do I need to move there?
Yeah.
You can
Come
sit
to the
here. You want to sit
table.
next to me? Oh, that means I'm gonna be in the camera though.
Camera.
There we go.
On one chair.
There we go. All right, the public hearing is on anybody that wants to look at it, and spread these around the table for. And, Bill, if you want,
That's okay.
I'm looking
Let,
at it.
let me just pipe
Look
in.
at.
Okay.
This is something we're working on for a couple of years, you know. Cause the water line has failed, it goes to, it's supposed to be a loop around truants and so forth. And we've been trying to replace the water line going down Morris Street. And to do that, we need to move where it is. And so, we wanna move it to the middle and repave the road. And you know, but Skip had to give an easement, change where the easement is. That's all it is. It actually gives Skip more usable land. Because the water pipe's not gonna be
Skip
there.
being the owner of the corner property.
Yes,
Gotcha.
it gives him more usable land, actually, it makes it. It's the way the town should have it set up. So we've been waiting for him to sign off on this for a couple of years. Finally, he said he'd do it, so you're like dozens of phone calls and just really trying to work on it. So I didn't think we needed to come to planning board, but Roy felt better that it would go to planning board just for a quick approval, but it's really all it is.
Roy Van Saborn for
Yeah,
surveying.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
yes,
that's okay. No, I just for clarification, right?
yeah, and so, you know, we went back and forth. Laura said no, he said yes, so we said we'll just go and do it.
So we have something from him that he said he's willing to do this?
Yes, yep,
And now does it affect the other house, you know, the other?
No.
Does it affect them at all?
No.
In any way?
No.
Um,
the only thing that affects them is that they think they should have more land than they do. But it has nothing to do with this.
That's a different story.
right, we, you know, we treated this just like a hearing on anything, sent out.
Sure.
Notice and all that. We did not get a card back from, Skip. Which I'm just noting that.
Yeah.
And we traced the history of it. I had Kathy, we had that when.
This has kind of been a tempest that people have heard a long time.
It's here somewhere. Okay, I had Kathy, just track, you know, how you do the tracking with the mail. And, here it is, there it is. I had her just go through to, because it affects his land, that you want to make sure that he knew about the hearing and was.
He definitely knows it. He has to sign on this, he has to sign off on all this,
This,
you know.
yeah, he has to sign off anyway.
Yeah, he has to sign off on all
No matter what we do tonight,
He has to still
there's
sign.
still legal work to
Yeah,
do, and he either
absolutely.
signs that legal work or not.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And the trouble is now, you know, that has to go through shoreline protection because it's 250 feet away from the river. So even though it seems ridiculous,
Oh my
before we
God.
can even work on the road and do all that stuff. Yeah. So that we finally got that the application filed for that. But that takes 6 weeks. So I'm hopeful it'll get done this winter because Mike Highland has really a lot of trouble with his water. He has to filter it. It's cold. Ice machines are clogged up and all kinds of stuff.
You know, we have the tracking of that letter and what happened to it all along the way. And the last response was, August 14th at 1 o'clock, unclaimed. And so today it's being reserved, being returned to us.
Yeah.
But you gotta remind them to pick it up before August 12th. Available for pickup and arrive, we got the whole tracking of it. So there's evidence we sure tried.
So can I make a
Send it.
motion, we
Yeah,
approve the,
I'll second
approve the
that.
movement of the easement?
Bill?
I'm sorry,
Is there any?
Yes.
yeah,
Don't grade my homework based on appearance. It was an afterthought when I was coming in tonight. I just thought that folks might like to see what has transpired to get to this point. And as Scott said, it's been a while. It started in March 23rd of 2021.
Okay,
And it was explained that it was a fairly large leak that flooded the municipal parking lot in the basement of Highlands
right,
back in January. And as Scott said, the loop is dead-ended because of the valve that had to be installed to stop the leak. Is the leak stopped yet?
yes,
It is.
but we had to, it caused a big mess of mice. It's a temporary fix that we had to. But the loop is dead right now. It's not working, so.
And then it jumps to February of this year. And I think you can see the back and forth on the $50,000. The mortgage company would sign off. And Judy said that we spent $19,000 already because of permitting and hiring an engineer, and Scott answered the question, is this still required? After being stonewalled, the owner returned with a request for $50,000. Judy said that he was offered $10,000. He signed a purchase and sales agreement. But then at town meeting, we said that this did not have to go before the residents of the town, that it could be done strictly with the select people. Scott suggested that we go and pursue eminent domain. So is there a cost to it? Are we spending any money
No.
to him?
No,
He's doing no money.
he's getting no money. He's getting a better use of his property. But no money. In hindsight, what we were saying before, if we'd started. If we knew it was gonna be this unreasonable to get it done, we would have started eminent domain 2 years ago. And it probably would have been cheaper and faster, but we kept on thinking, oh, he's just gonna sign it, he's gonna sign it, he's gonna sign it, and it just never happened.
So you were pretty emphatic in February when you said.
No, we're done.
You said, let's go to court.
Yeah, we're done, exactly.
So just a couple of things going through and digging. Morris Street, if you really zoom in on Axis GIS, Morris Street is behind the Bear Den and Woodstock Pie Company. And if you zoom in on the parking lot, coming down from that Morris Street into the parking lot, down the center of the parking lot, and then out the property that you're speaking of here, it's on Axis GIS as that being Wayside Road. So I don't know if that has anything to do with your applications or.
It's everything's done. At this point, thank you, Bill. Wayside Road, though, really, huh?
If you
Wow.
zoom
Yeah.
all the way in, it's Wayside.
I don't think it's gonna make any difference at this point. It's been surveyed to death and engineered to death, and I'm surprised they didn't catch that at some point.
And now the other thing is, I only know I'm familiar with that station, that location since the late 60s. But going back in the registry of deeds, it had many lives as a petroleum company.
Mhm.
Companies, I should say. And I went through the Department of Environmental Services. And there is a tank on the site. The project number is 0013037. And it says there is an in-ground tank there.
It's not where we are. I'm sure.
That's where I was going.
Yeah.
Next is. Before the Bill Waterhouse that most of you know, I was involved in other employment. And one of them being involved with hazardous materials, I worked for a company down in Norfolk. And there were 4 good companies there: OK Tool, Hendricks Cable, Northeast Fabricators, and Hitchner Manufacturing. And a 5-gallon drum of 111 trichloroethane went into the ground on one of those properties. And by the time they resolved it, a trailer park had to be moved. A mobile home park, I'm sorry, had to be moved. The 4 companies had to drill new water wells for the town. And they never could pinpoint which one of the 4 that all used 111 trichloroethane was responsible, so they all paid. And now there are only 2 on that corner, but they're out of business. So it may not be there where it is, but if you unearth that, and it had been associated with oils, and you are close to, it's at least a class 4 river. I think it might even be a class 5 river, the middle branch of the Pemigewasset. I only offer it in trying to be thorough.
Sure.
And once you open that can, if there's something in that soil.
I think that was part of the understanding too. It's going to be his responsibility.
No, I don't think anybody has that amount.
No, I don't know. But all I know is all we want to do is just dig a trench down the middle of that driveway, and that's it. And I hopefully DES and all those people will realize what's going on. You know what I mean? So if there was a problem, they say something. I don't think it's a problem. I mean, could there someday be a problem? I don't know. But I can't say there's not, but I think it's unlikely. That's all I'm saying.
So supposedly there's still a tank in the ground.
Not in the driveway, but up in front.
We had the Chevron station there. That was our first gas station.
So it's Bonnie's fault.
And that would have been at about 67, 68, Route 72, let's just say. In that time period, we had the Chevron station there, and we bid on it to buy that property, but we got outbid by the oil company at the time. Ernie Sonia paid, and we didn't even know about it. He was dealing with some big monkey buck with Chevron. We were dealing with the district, and man, oh boy, he outbid us. So we lost it, and we moved up to the where we are now, up to the Exxon station. So we were there, and of course we had petroleum deliveries. To my understanding, they were not. This is
Right.
no land. That looks like land on paper, but oh god, it just drops right off,
Yeah.
right straight down. That's not. That's quite a steep slope. This business, and there always was controversy as to exactly where this triangle right here. You know, exactly where is it? Exactly where is the triangle? Because it is an odd shaped lot, and there's other properties and interests there. I don't remember the tanks coming out, but of course we left there in like about 72, and I didn't keep track of it.
Tanks were in the front.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were
How
not.
old-
No way they were out back.
No,
Absolutely no way.
How old are the tanks?
it really has nothing to do with this.
I think it does. I think it does, because pollution doesn't know who has territory.
It's like water.
Well, we're gonna have, if it is polluted, we're gonna have to deal with it.
Who would be responsible?
he is supposed to be responsible.
It continues backwards to previous
Right.
generations, you know, whoever the offender was.
Yeah.
It doesn't just, you know, go with it. If
Um,
he didn't know, you know, or whatever, if he wasn't using it, it does go back, so.
I think it's very unlikely, and I think we will have to deal with it when it happens. This needs to be done. Period.
Scott, please
There's no question it
communicate.
needs to be done. I just want to know the responsibility if by chance Murphy's Law.
Right.
I got a cousin by the name of Murphy and he bites me in
Oh,
the
yeah.
butt every time I turn around.
Please take a look.
Who
Find
would be the financial responsibility?
I will look into it, Bill, but I would like the blessing on this easement on this. I will look into it, though.
And I'd like you to hear what I'm saying.
I-
I worked with a fellow.
I know exactly what you're saying, and I think it's worth looking into for sure.
You know what it costs to remove and burn and clean soil and replace it? It's huge.
That does sound like a selectman thing, not a planning board thing.
Right.
It sounds like, you know,
I-
the planning board issue seems to be more of
Moving this
the
line.
easement, and then the select board has to.
And I
determine it.
think I will look into that. I will start tomorrow, actually, Bill. And I'll see what our town engineer has to say,
Mhm.
because he surveyed it, they've been down there. And they could see what happens. You know, so.
Because it is a big concern.
Town would be responsible.
Right.
That's all I'm looking at.
Oh, no, I agree. I don't either.
They've got a brownfield site right over. Many people know about.
I mean, one thing that can be done, it probably will be relatively inexpensive because I had it done on one of my buildings in Medford.
Yeah.
Is a couple of test drill
Yeah.
spots, drill it, put a test tube in, and test what is in the ground. If there's no oil, then probably anybody's concerns.
Thing is, I don't even know how we know. All we plan on doing is doing 2-foot wide trench down the middle of the road.
So.
Burying the
Tested
pipe,
area.
putting
Tested
dirt
that
back
area.
in.
Yeah,
And paving it.
well, test in the area where you're gonna dig,
Putting
with
it-
couple wells, and I don't
mean,
know, them monitor them for like 30 days.
Who would even know that it was polluted in there, I mean, at this point.
Hmm.
I mean,
Depends on how fast you move and do.
well, I'm just saying, no one's, I mean, I don't want to do anything, that's gonna cause any harm either, but I think it's really unlikely, and I think it's definitely a concern we should look at as we go forward, but.
But yeah, I do think that's a select board issue, more than a planning board issue, because we're talking about the approval of an easement.
Yeah.
Um,
Nothing, we're not talking about,
and really was it a repair garage as well as a gas station?
it's been a lot of things.
Okay, so as a repair garage, I mean, let's face it, there's probably oil around.
There's gotta be stuff in there, I agree with you, Bill, there's something there,
Yeah,
probably.
Probably, most likely, for sure. I personally was wishing that the owner of the land would be here at the hearing. I was hoping now. He got notice legally. He got the notice is legal. Our responsibility to send out a notice to alert affected parties that this is happening tonight. That was met.
Yeah.
That was met. And it is more it's a selectmen's issue, negotiating for the easement, is a selectman issue, not us, nothing to do with us. We just see something on paper. And we see an easement. And you're telling me that.
And the state's going through this too, the state, part of it's gonna be on state property, so I mean, they were also. So I would think they'd be more likely to run into than us, because they're gonna have to go through the intersection and so forth there.
I'm just seeing if there's any, the notes and references here. The setbacks, right away, portion, lease agreement, the Dead River Company. A portion of this portion of the building is subject to a lease granted to Dead River. Location width. The purpose of this plan is to define a location width for the existing public right of way between 112 East and Woodstock Municipal Parking Lot. Conveyed by the owner, the town of Woodstock shall be recorded here, and said easement shall also include the right for the town to install a new municipal water main generally along the center of the easement and to maintain some water
Yeah.
main in perpetuity.
And so it gives us the right to do it. It doesn't talk about excavation.
No.
That's not our. box.
Right.
Right.
That's not our problem. So, I mean, we have a motion in a second. I'm in favor of
There's
Okay,
no liability on our part, because it's only a
it. Yeah.
permission to do,
Correct.
easement. It's not our land.
right, it's not, it's a selectman issue to negotiate with the owner.
To figure out how to get it done.
To get it
Right.
done, it's our issue to look at it and see if this is, the appropriate place to put a.
I didn't even think an easement change had to go before the planning board.
I'm surprised too,
That's,
that it's
I
here,
mean, you know, and so,
I'm surprised that it's here. We would only represent that it's the 5 feet, what
Right.
our rules and regulations and our jurisdictions are. The 5 feet setback, yup. The distance from the building, yup. The 20 feet is what we would customarily say yes to for a right of way. It's not too small, 8 feet or 10, it's 20.
it's not good, but it's.
It's
That's
not good, but, we don't think, that you need drainage ditch, those are the types of things we look at. The slope, the need for drainage. It's paved, is it paved the entire 20 feet?
It will be, yeah.
Those are the things we look at,
It's actually gonna change a little bit the bond, where it comes out.
those are the things we look at under our jurisdiction. If this was on somebody else's property and it wasn't being given to the town of Woodstock, would it be treated the same way? Would we say yes to this kind of an easement? Doesn't meet our rules and regulations, period. And that's all we can look at, not the negotiations between the parties.
Right.
The owner and the town. All right, anybody have
But I won't-
anything else? Do you want to add anything else?
I'll wait till you go.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve this 20-foot wide street and water main easement over the land owned by Winslow B. Schurman Jr. Want to call the roll call?
Margaret? Yes. Lee?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes,
Igor?
Yes,
Bonnie?
Yes. Did you have anything you want to say now?
Yes, go for
Just
it.
looking forward, and again, I only have basic tools and I have Access GIS. But Access GIS, I believe, I checked it again today. There was the water main running under the building on that property.
And it runs underneath Sherwin's too, so that's why we need to change. That's why the water line has to be,
Gonna move.
yes, in the middle, yes.
My recollection from having been there is, the water main.
No, it's
Right
terrible.
along
Yeah.
Truant's building, the water main.
And it's
on
underneath
this
their
side.
building too.
It's under, it's
Yes.
under.
Their building,
Truant's-
it's under Truant's, and that's
under-
why we have to go around, and that's what shut off, and that's shut off right now.
That is
that part of it,
absolutely
that's
the
why you don't
truth.
have-
That's where the
That's why
water
you don't
main
have the loop anymore, it's shut off there.
Was on that
So-
side.
So we've got a different way, so now we're gonna go around, do the lights down at Morris Street, hopefully hook it up so the loop will be. In there again.
It's a couple public interest of a government.
It's expensive.
Yeah,
Type project, it is.
I think.
And I checked just for your information, afterwards I did check with the local government center, as I like to do.
Yes,
And, Attorney Buckley there explained the same thing. It's for the planning board to decide, does this meet the standards? And the negotiations between the parties and the town, it's a selectman matter. And I think you heard tonight some things to check into.
Sure,
you know,
absolutely,
as
I will.
selectmen, as to where those tanks are and how it can
I'm
be.
surprised they let them stay there though.
And how it can be an easement without
Okay.
some liability to the town.
Yeah.
So those are things to look at, but it's the local government center's opinion was it was not in our purview to factor those kinds of things into our work here. So we will sign it. All right, moving on,
Public hearing's over.
public hearing is over. Wait, was there anybody in the audience that? What's that?
One on the phone.
Yeah. Is there anybody?
Kevin Foley.
Anybody on the? Did you have anything you wanted to say about this hearing?
No? No. Sounds good.
All right, so we didn't overlook somebody that, all right. Approval of the minutes.
I may get motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll
All
second it.
right. Any changes, errors, omissions? All right, you want to do the roll call?
Margaret,
Yes.
Lee, Catherine.
Yes.
Scott,
Yes,
Jerry,
Yes,
Igor,
Yes,
Bonnie.
Yes. All right, selectmen's report.
just pretty quiet right now. We've had a. You know, it's moving right along here. Probably most people have heard that the ice castle is gonna put some type of sand sculpture. Exhibit on, I don't know really. I don't get it, but you know, they do a nice job with what they do, so it'll be interesting to see. They don't anticipate huge crowds for this, I mean. Very, you know, not anything like they have in order time. That's the only thing. And there's a lot of talk about tiny homes, and I think I'm doing some research into that, stuff like that, so.
Okay.
It's either a campground, or there should be detached, should be, you know, if they're on wheels, I mean, there's a lot of issues there. So,
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to add one more thing that, advice that I got was that, you know, in the future, it's got nothing to do with legalities or what we're doing, but if we can send out a notice both certified like this and regular. And sometimes people will pick up their regular mail. And that's just something to think about when we're doing official business here. It costs a teeny bit more money, but it might give you a little bit more assurance that people got their mail to do the certified and to also follow it up with so as we're doing our rules of procedure, maybe we should think about that, but when we send out things, do it both ways.
I mean, the only way you're not gonna get that is that you don't wanna take it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know.
but a lot
Just a
of
waste of
people
money.
don't take certified mail,
Yeah.
but they got their regular mail if they're not paying attention.
Well, they know what it is, and it's,
They have found though that they've seen towns that, oh, okay, that worked, they got it. You know, they accepted.
but how do they know they got it?
So they probably
They don't know they
I
got
know
it.
they got it. So that, I was just thinking of that as another thing that we might want to think about if we're in doubt as to whether people get their mail. All right, correspondence received, Kristen, Durocher, FEMA elevation certificate, National Flood Insurance Plan. And then the Gregory Allis, Verisk unable to provide info on the repairs of lost property referring to FEMA. And Margaret probably knows a little more about all of the national flood insurance.
Yeah, so the first one, the FEMA elevation certificate, primarily pertains to, Bob Stoller as the building inspector. Going forward, there's a new elevation certificate that needs to be used whenever any construction is done that requires a building permit. And that's basically all that letter was about.
We have with the new ones.
Yeah.
Already, like Jules down in Resnick's and they all, and that way they don't have to have flood insurance either. Anyway, that's, yeah, I know what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, and then the other one was, Gregory Allis was a name that was given to me along with the documentation that came in the community, rating system manual. And it turned out that they've changed the system since the manual was written, and now that the request has to go directly to FEMA.
With the
So-
government, and we're here to help.
Yes,
He said, there's a new procedure, you have to send this unofficial letterhead to FEMA, and the select board has to sign off on it. So,
okay, we can do that.
So I'll need to get together with Scott
Sure.
probably and fill in the documentation and send off that request.
Yep.
Because we need, so first step is we need to get from FEMA the history of prior flood losses.
Right,
And then we need to send that information along with the application to become part of the community rating system program. And in order to get the first step in the program, we need to be able to prove that we can qualify for at least 500 points. So we would move ourselves up into a level 9. And that would give us some minuscule amount of data.
okay,
So that's actually pretty good. and
Oh, yeah.
It should be relatively
painless.
painless and relatively straightforward to get those first 500 points. It's gonna involve some of the things that we've already done, like making sure that we have a regulation in place, making sure that we're enforcing the regulation, making sure that Bob's using that certificate every time there's a building permit, stuff like that. Notify them. And there are a few other things we can go list, and we can also get people involved from OSI to come in and help us with the initial evaluation. So that if there are places where we almost qualify but don't quite, they can help us make the minor changes that would be needed to push us over the edge so we get the points.
Okay, good, let's push it over and get the points. Good,
Exactly.
good work.
So next step is I'll meet with Scott, and then
Sure.
we'll find a time when we can convene a larger meeting of the whole subcommittee for
Yep.
community rating.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much, Margaret. The budget review, it's time for us to look at our budget, and we don't need to get back to them until September 30th. So everybody can look at it and we can vote on something. But in general, we don't change the budget
That's
much from year to year. I mean, we have.
Do we exceed the payroll at the end of the year? Because we're running ahead of what the.
We will now, we will now, we probably will have to shift some money
You're gonna have to
around.
change that.
We'll have to change it because this is the first time in a long, we have a secretary. We've been a lot of Margaret helping out and getting a stipend when she remembered to submit it. But we now have, a paid staff, so we're gonna probably have to.
Well,
look at
I would like to see us then take the amount that we're gonna be over and for next year out of a different line item. As
Okay.
opposed to allocating more money,
I
Yeah.
think you can, easy.
Yeah.
I do too.
I'm sure it's in.
And I don't
there.
care where it comes from, but I don't wanna show any line item over expended and I don't wanna increase the budget.
Right,
Right, I think if you look at period expenditures, we've only spent 3,700 out of the whole budget.
Right, yeah, the whole thing looks great, but the line items.
No, I think we need to tweak it, yes, absolutely.
yeah.
So they're in the right spot.
Right.
I agree.
We did, to be able to hire consultants and legal. And we used to have just an operating expense. And we wrote that down so that we had the right to seek legal advice and had the right to hire a consultant. So we've done that before, moved the numbers around.
I
We're
mean,
always paid
if we
within
ended
our
up in a
budget.
big mess, the town's got a legal budget too.
Right.
Jump it on.
And
So-
so, My other question, this is, I mean, $310.90, what are the planning board expenses that what are we using? What are we?
The books that we don't know.
Well, the books, and we're gonna decide, whether we want books. Yeah,
Well, I think people
books.
want that, can have them, but
Yeah. The book is less expensive.
Gotcha.
Books, and there's a little bit of postage and things like
All right.
that, and coffee.
books online, I
and
think.
a little bit.
Okay.
Or somebody really, back in the day, you'd go to a conference or something, but now it's just a stipend, you pay $25 or something. You know, we don't have the expenses like you used to have, and I think the North Country Council money comes out of the.
Selectmen's budget.
Yeah. No, if anybody asks now, I can answer it, so
Yes.
that's why.
Yeah, got it, all right, so we'll officially vote on it.
I would like to
Something
make a
about-
motion that we allocate some small amount of budget to buy one more chair.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
stop it.
Oh, my God, let's get it there, yes.
Well, can we put it away in a closet for other meetings, so it's just the planning board chair?
Let me, yeah, let me see if we can, I'll talk to a different budget maybe for that.
Let's get a chair. They've never let us buy another chair.
I'll talk to Judy, see if we can.
The first
Spring
person
for us, sure.
comes in has to sit on it.
That's all right, I'm quite comfortable. As long as the meeting doesn't take 3 hours.
Right.
It's been a funny topic that's come up every now and then. We'll have another chair. All right, that sounds good. I put these down as continuing discussions because it's summer and we didn't make a lot of progress on the master plan. Or the subdivision regulations, a little bit, flood insurance. We didn't really come up with tons of new stuff.
I think after Labor Day.
Forwards. So
Time to focus on
I
that.
put it continuing discussion. Margaret had made some progress on the subdivision regulations and flood insurance. Christina had, she was going to put together a draft of the master plan, remember, just something to start with, just to look at, a base to look at. Well, we had several family illnesses and she just couldn't. She had a couple of family members that were quite ill, so she just never found the time to get it ready for tonight. So that's why I said continuing. Okay. Yeah, did you want to say any more about the?
Talk about this.
Okay.
Regulation, I've never had a chance to review it.
Did you get the?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, you can talk about that. Tonight. You wanna lead them through anything, Margaret?
Does anyone have questions about it?
Actually, it was nice seeing the layout of it when I was able to go through it. I did have a couple of questions that were just kind of like very small things, because it looks, for me, reading this in a vacuum outside of when we're being challenged on it, I find difficult. I'll use the
Right.
telecommunications ordinance as the best thing. When you're in it and you have different things that you're saying, okay, how do I think about this particular item? You're able to more focus on it. So I have a hard time, me personally, focusing on it without being, challenged on it. I guess that's the best way of putting it. But the two things that I was curious, well, actually a couple of things. On number 3.06, it goes from Roman numeral I, and I'm glad somebody changed all of the I's and IV. It goes from 1 to 4. It skips, at least in the drafts that I saw. Am I wrong?
What page you on?
That's like call it page 11, maybe.
That looks like you are correct. So there's some correction needed there.
Right? And then still in that, number 306, I, then B. This is kind of one of those things, when I think about regulations, I think about how you quantify, how do you go from here to there? And it says in one point, provide for the harmonious development of the municipality, and I don't know if it was environment, I can't read my writing, and it's like, when harmonious development, that doesn't sound like something that you can regulate.
it's much of a.
It's esoteric, it's like,
Yeah, it's an opinion too.
right, and so you can't,
My opinion was harmonious. and yours
right, it's like.
Might be different than mine.
Yeah.
Right, so I don't know how you can put that, that might be something in a master plan, but I don't know if it's right for
For the
subdivision
subdivision.
regulations.
Yeah,
Okay,
It's
and
not quantitative or whatever
Right,
they
right.
say, it's not
Yeah.
black and white
the other one
judgment.
is similar, and that's 3.06 IK. And it talks, this is the solar thing. And it talks about, that we'd like to strive for solar or wind or whatever renewable in the subdivisions and as a community. Well, that's all well and good, but if I was to put solar on my building right now, I'm gonna be taxed extra.
Right.
Am I right? You know.
We tried to,
Right, but I was just saying, so I actually investigated and it's like, no, I'm gonna get taxed more. Why should I do it? So that is contrary to what the town is actually doing. So it should also not be in the subdivision regulation.
it's not a regulation for sure, it should be
Right.
part of the master plan.
Master, again, master plan, right.
Part of the master
And
plan.
because, and then it goes to RSA 477, which I completely don't, I have it here. And it talks about easements and the landowners granting easement, but there's no benefit to the landowner to grant these easements to the town. And so it's like, wait a minute, does the town have to accept the idea of getting the easement? So that whole section just, to me, is wonky. It doesn't make sense. And so,
I think one thing we should
Wow.
address while we're looking at these two is that what we always get into the mess like with the trailer park, is that a subdivision? Do we want to make?
I get it. Yeah, yeah.
Or is a tiny house a subdivision when you put, what is that subdivision? And when does it kick in? I think we should make it clear it is
I think
or
we
it
have to
isn't.
decide it is or
And I don't think a mobile park is needs to be, if it's rental of land, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying what's right or wrong, but I think we need to look at it, clarify it, so we don't go down this rat hole every time one of these things comes
I
up.
think that's the most important thing we should do, because I think
agree.
I differ from you. I mean, probably when we vote, I probably would say yes and you'll say no.
No, and
So
I
we
think,
need,
we can make it clearer,
Mhm.
What is and what isn't.
let's make sure we do that, because that's
So-
really. what
That's
we're
one
doing.
mess we get in all the time.
All the time we get into.
In a campground.
Just the.
Right now, they're saying a
final
campground is a subdivision. Should we make a campground a subdivision? I don't think it should be, so,
Right.
but
I have to think about that a little bit.
I want to read over, I want to read it again, what
Yeah,
it's worded,
okay.
and we end up in this mess every year or two, and
And it's
takes a
gonna
lot
happen
of
again.
time. Oh, yeah, right.
the way I read the harmonious development one is, I had been to one of the OSI workshops where they were talking about the creation of subdivisions where the ideal is to provide for a certain amount of green space for the number of houses. And what we wanted to do is to encourage developers to position houses as much as possible such that green space wasn't unnecessarily disturbed.
Mhm.
And I think that's what we meant to say with that one,
It's still.
but it's not
It's
worded.
very
the way that-
difficult to
yeah.
regulate that because each piece of land is different. And so when you're citing buildings on, and I'm not a developer, but when you're citing buildings, each land is an individual. And so, what you, like what Scott was saying earlier, what you think is harmonious may not be what the developer thinks, certainly not what the
Right.
developer would think is harmonious,
Right.
because for them, the harmonious part is to maximize the value of the real estate.
Sure.
So. Anyway, I have, if it's, we need to be a little bit clearer, I think.
And I'm gonna try to
We have
read through
define it
that and
better.
maybe. We're gonna talk to
Quantify it,
a little
right.
bit too, because we should have a pretty cut and dry
Yeah. Place that I
We
think
need it, because we get into this.
situation all the time.
Every time one comes before us. We debate about it.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I
get it.
absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
That's a great place, great thing to.
And,
put tonight.
and it can go to, I mean, you can even carry it to industrial type buildings and storage units and apartment buildings and this.
Whatever.
There's a ton of, and there's a ton of new, like the tiny houses and and like, RV parks are becoming, es- established places to live. I mean,
I've talked to,
it needs to be something that it meets our needs, not now, only now, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
And,
not when new
I've
development
talked to the
comes.
campground association, like, the tiny homes like on, Lost Valley Camp. They have to be vacated at least a month a year.
Yes.
Or it's not a campground, it's a house,
Right.
period.
Right,
So they have to leave and not have it open for at least a month, right?
Right.
I think it's a month or 2 months a year. So I mean. It's a real gray area to get into, especially these tiny homes on wheels and, there's a lot of stuff.
The
And-
whole taxation, it's what concerns me is like, there's, I'm not sure how the cell towers are, but. You have a piece of real estate and they get property tax, and then a tower gets taxed, or does the mobile home get taxed separate from the real estate? It should all, to me, in my
Yes, it
way of
does.
thinking,
It
I
does.
should all go
It
back
does.
to the real estate and let the owner of the land collect the portion of the taxes.
it does.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't think we can regulate that, but.
Yeah,
And it also makes a difference whether they register it as a motor vehicle or not.
Right.
Crazy.
On these,
So-
motorhome type.
Yeah, I gotta,
Houses, if they register it as an automobile,
right, Or a
it's not,
trailer.
it's not
Right.
it's not real estate.
but if you're around and you're gonna plate on it, I mean, people are doing it. I
They're
mean,
doing it all the time, and they're gonna register it. We got into that discussion, remember, on the cell tower one we just had, and about half and half, I forget the numbers, but some were. Some exact same living were motor vehicles and some were houses.
Yeah, that needs clarification.
So all that stuff, I think we should take the time and.
Yeah,
Figure
let's
it
do
out.
it. Any other big topic that anybody can think of that we need to
Subdivision,
reiterate?
I think the subdivision regulations are well
Pretty
written.
reasonable.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's just, it's like I said, it's tough until you're being challenged on them, and then you say, oh, here's the mistake.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
But we always have this problem.
Right, so let's get it cleaned
All
up.
right,
The one that I wanted your opinion on too is,
Oh.
2.22, where it talks about minor subdivision. Where it says that it's not more than 3 lots,
Right.
or one which does not involve the creation of new street. Because of the or there, it sounds like it creates a loophole the way that it's written.
I don't know.
it does, if it's on an existing street. And you're not naming a new street, maybe, somebody could make that argument. It's on a regular street, it's got a good road going to it.
Why can't if they're right next to other? Right, why would they need to do that? I mean, if you've got an acre lot right along
Right.
one street,
Right,
and you could put a driveway right into it. I don't know.
I don't know, but let's keep that one in mind, because I could see somebody making the argument. I mean, it makes a difference between the need to build a road. up into
You're
those
saying
roads.
that it would still be a minor subdivision if, okay, so I own 1,500
Yeah.
feet of frontage on my road. Okay, plus or minus, and the frontage requirements, whatever,
Right.
200 feet. I could put 7 lots down there and still have it as a minor subdivision if I wasn't
The way
creating a
this
road.
is written.
The way it's written.
Yeah,
No,
that should be tightened up.
You
No,
could
I
break it
know.
into 2 separate ones.
Yeah, you could.
Like when I
Just
made another lot on my
instead of
property,
four, just
I
make
had
it
to
2
put a
separate
50-foot
lines.
right away down.
Yeah.
The middle, so it could go to both. Not that I would ever use it, but
Right,
it's
I
just
got
the
it.
way it is.
Yeah.
The body told me that because I have to do it now.
I said you had.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah. I see that, that's a good point.
That, or,
Get rid of the or.
Yeah.
you can see somebody going down that road.
Yeah.
Or, this is the other argument.
Yeah.
All right.
So just to look at how we need to write this.
Yeah.
Any more than three lots.
Yeah.
Okay, good discussion, really good. Diane Todd has resigned as a board member. She's
Do we have to vote to accept the resignation or anything like that?
I would think so.
Yes, I would say we should with regrets. Thank her for her service and so forth. Somebody.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
second.
All in favor? Aye. So that leaves, a spot on the board, and let's see, we've got two alternates, right? What do we want to do?
Who got the most votes? I don't.
That's a good question.
Who got the most votes?
That's Verisk.
I think that's the way,
We've got to research.
yeah,
That'll have to research.
Let's do research.
to me, that's the right way to do
I
it.
agree. Yeah.
And both of you would be willing to serve as
Sure.
a full member.
Good.
All right. Let's do the research and see.
Won't take long.
Okay. It won't take long.
I can't remember.
I don't remember. Do you guys remember?
I don't.
Did you guys tally up your votes or? Pay it?
Well, less than you. What was your talent?
Uh-oh.
I don't.
Igor, you might. I don't know. We gotta look.
So we can look.
I don't know.
See.
I think I got like 70 something, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, all right, let's look and
Yeah.
see. And go from there. Public participation. Anything else that the board wants to bring forward? Anybody on the TV? Kevin, did you have something?
No, nothing.
Okay, well, thank you for attending.
Oh, you're welcome. Great meeting.
Yeah, this was a good meeting. Anything else to bring before the meeting, before we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
Favorite motion.
It's like a last time, so.
But I will look into that. Brother. Can you just speak to the kids at all this year? I'm telling you.
That was fun.
I never.
Yes,